song of prayer.
Have your way right now.
Y'all
Have
sing
your
it if
way.
you know.
Holy Spirit, fill our hearts and have your way. As we wait, as we pray to you. Speak your word into our hearts and have your way. Have your way. Have your Holy Spirit, fill our hearts and have your way. As we wait, as we pray to you. Speak your word into our hearts and have your way. Speak your word into our hearts and have your way. Right now, speak your word into our hearts and have your
Amen.
What? Who sings that?
I like that.
I've
It's
never
Don
heard
Moore, is it?
Don Moore.
that.
Who?
That's
Don
Don
Moore.
Bowen. I want us to begin this morning, and I'm going to ask y'all to do something that may be very difficult for y'all. I want you to almost enter into like a time zone right now. And I want you to project yourself into the future and imagine, if you can, all through this lesson, I want you to imagine that you are one of these who is living during the time of tribulation. And I know that you're thinking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to imagine that. But I think if we can really, truly put ourselves there, that this lesson is going to have so much more of an impact on us if we can do that. So you have lived through 3.5 years so far of this tribulation. A man has risen to power with the promise of peace, but things are not looking so good. The world is like hell's holiday. There have been natural disasters like none that the world has ever seen. There's been war, there's been famine, there have been plagues, there have been some kind of demonic creatures that have tortured people, and others have been killed. There's been more death than you can even comprehend. This leader has now walked into the temple, and he has declared that he is God, and he has, his right-hand man has commanded all the earth to worship this leader and to take his mark on their hand or on their forehead. And anyone who does not take that mark will be killed. The entire world is now at the mercy of this world leader. Millions of people have been missing for quite a while now. You've heard that some believe that their Messiah, a man named Jesus Christ, just swept these people away to paradise in what some people call the rapture. But that is totally bizarre to you. And you at this point are more than just a little bit freaked out. And you are desperate for answers. You have got to know the truth. There's no doubt in your mind that the end of the world as we know it is happening. And you need to know what's happening and why and how it's going to turn out for you. You don't know about taking this mark. Something feels so wrong about it. but you know that you're very likely going to die if you don't. You really need to know where you are going to be when the last curtain falls. The 14th chapter of Revelation was written for you. The theme of this whole book, and especially this whole book of Revelation, and especially the 14th chapter of Revelation, is about the time when the righteous are going to be separated from the unrighteous, so that a totally righteous kingdom can be set up upon this earth at the close of human history. And this chapter is going to help you to know where you're going to be. And I think it will help you to answer some of the questions that I think are probably on your mind right now. Number one, should I take that mark? Number two, what will be the final outcome for those who take that mark? Number three, what will be the final outcome for those who refuse to take that mark? And number four, when the last curtain falls, will I be safe? So I'm going to begin by reading Revelation chapter 14. And then we're going to talk about the answers to your questions and how you can be sure that you will be safe in the end. As we talked about earlier in our study here, in our discussion time, this chapter is a sneak peek of the end of this time of tribulation. It's going to begin when the tribulation is over and the millennial kingdom has been set up. And then it's going to take us back in the next verses, and we are going to see some of the events that happened leading up to that millennial righteous kingdom on the earth. All right, so let's begin reading in Revelation chapter 14. And I looked, and behold, the Lamb. Now I want y'all to tell me, who is the Lamb? Jesus Christ, all right. The Lamb, Jesus Christ, and that has become very clear throughout all of Scripture who that is, was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. And the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. These are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves chaste. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. And no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. All right, so here in these verses, we've got what's going to be happening at the end of the tribulation. There is Christ standing on the earth. He's now come back in his what we call the second coming. He's standing on the earth, on Mount Zion, and he has 144,000 Jews standing there with him who have been sealed by God with the name of the Lamb and his Father on their forehead. All right. Now, of course, as I told you, we're going to go back to a series of events that happened that led up to that time. All right. It's beginning in verse 6. And I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. And he said with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. and worship him who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the springs of water. All right? He's telling them, worship God, worship your Creator. We need to know, who is he talking about? Is he talking about Jesus Christ, the Lamb? Is that who our Creator is? It's very clear from John chapter 1. He tells us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things came into being by him, and apart from him, nothing has come into being that has come into being. So he has made it very clear there that whoever he's talking about is the Creator. Well then, down in verse 14 of John, he says, and this Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So John is clearly identifying this as none other than the God-man, Jesus Christ. Okay. All right, so then another angel, a second one, followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who has made all the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality. And another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, If anyone worships the beast and his image, and receives a mark on his forehead or upon his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day and night, those who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. So now he's going to tell you how to persevere here. Here it is. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds will follow them. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like a son of man, having a golden crown on his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came out from the temple, crying out with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, Put in your sickle and reap, because the hour to reap is come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe. Why is it ripe? Because every person on earth now has heard the truth, and they have made their choice. And he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. And another angel, the one who has the power over fire, came out from the altar, and he called out with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Put in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe. And the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vine of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out from the winepress up to the horses' bridles, and for a distance of 200 miles. Okay, let's go back, and we're going to take this whole thing apart. In verse 1, Christ is standing on where? You tell me. He's standing on Mount Zion. Okay? All right? We've seen this prophesied already in the Scriptures. God has given us the Scriptures, and we've already seen this prophesied. Who has Isaiah 2, 2 through 4?
I do.
Okay? If you will read that for us, please. And he is making it very clear here that the Lord is standing on Mount Zion. Okay? Isaiah 2, 2 through 4.
Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all the nations shall flow to it. Many people shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law.
Out of where?
Zion.
There you go.
For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Okay, so this that's prophesied in Isaiah is the same person that we now see. He's called in Isaiah, he's called the Lord. In Revelation, he's called the Lamb. John makes it very clear who that is, doesn't he? This is none other than Jesus Christ, and it's been prophesied from way back millenniums ago. All right? There will come a time when King Jesus will rule from Zion, the mount of the Lord in Jerusalem. And y'all, the swords and the spears will be changed by blacksmiths into farming implements, because there will be no more war under his reign. Yes. Okay. So we definitely want to know that we're going to make it to see this time and to live during that day, don't we? All right. So who is standing with him? 144,000. What kind of men? What nationality? Jewish men. All right. So this is a scene in heaven, and this is not a scene in heaven. This is a scene on the earth, and that 144,000 that lived through that tribulation, they made it. They made it. All right. So they made it through this entire thing, and they've lived now to tell about it, and they are singing his praises. So we're going to begin by listing the ones who are going to be safe at the end of this tribulation. And the first one is that the 144,000 Jewish witnesses with the mark of Yahweh, Yeshua, on their foreheads. All of those will survive the tribulation to meet Christ on Mount Zion at his second coming. Okay? So, if you all are Jewish, if any of you out here are Jewish, you could possibly be one of those that God will choose to be one of the 144,000. And he will put his mark on your forehead, and you will survive. Okay? Few quick points of application here is that I want to make is how many are there? 144,000. Okay? There aren't 143,000? There aren't 143,999? No, why? Because in John 18:9, God said, Jesus himself said, of all of those whom you give me, I lose not one. Not one. He sealed 144,000, and there are 144,000 that make it. All right? Now let me ask you this. What is sealed on them? What is that seal? The name of Yeshua and Yahweh. Okay, the name of the Lamb and the name of his Father. Y'all, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not sure. I don't remember if I got this from somebody else or if I just doodled this back years ago, but I had this in my notes from having taught Revelation before. And I may have gotten it from somebody else, but I don't remember, so I'm not going to take credit for it. But look at this. The name of Yahweh and his Son is going to be marked on their foreheads. But then I thought this time, but you know, that's English letters. That's our English letters. But they form a cross.
Yes, they do.
But then I looked it up in the Hebrew, how to spell Yeshua and Yahweh. in Hebrew.
Wow.
Oh,
Frosty.
Either way,
wow.
listen, I don't know. I'm not telling you that that is for sure what's gonna be marked on their forehead, but I think it is a very strong possibility that that right here, that right there, or that right there might be what they
Is that the
have.
same but in Greek or?
Greek.
That's the same thing, only in Greek, I mean, in Hebrew.
Hebrew.
Yes, that's in Hebrew. Okay. So, could it be possible that this is what they'll look like? That is just a guess on my part, just an absolute guess. But that is a possibility. Okay, then in verse 3, we have the 144,000, and they are before the throne and before the 4 living creatures and before the elders. Now, folks, you know who that is? That's all those people who were missing. They're back. They're back on the earth with the Lamb, with Christ, on Mount Zion. Okay? And they were singing, these 144,000 were singing a new song that nobody else could learn or sing. That word for song there is, and it means an ode, O-D-E. And it's a song that is sung in harmony. Don't you love to hear songs that are sung in harmony? 144,000, are you kidding me? In harmony, pointing to one's personal experience. It's the same word, y'all, that is used in Colossians 3:16, where it says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in what? Psalms and hymns and spiritual odes from your personal, sing to one another in spiritual songs. Tell each other through song about things that have happened to you personally. I want to give you an example. I'm going to take you back right quick to Exodus 15. You don't have to turn there, but I'll just read some of this real quickly to you. But this is an ode, and this is what the people sang when they crossed over the Red Sea and God had parted the sea. This is an ode. It says, I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider has been hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will extol him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army have been cast into the sea. The choicest of his officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deeps covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is majestic in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellence, thou dost overthrow those who rise up against thee. And then it goes on and on and on. And that is the ode that they sang. And that is what the 144,000 are singing. They are singing of their personal experience before the Lamb and of the faithfulness of God. And you know what? Nobody else can sing their song. You know why? Because nobody else has been through what they've just been through. I want you to think about what they've just been through. They have just lived through the worst circumstances that have ever come upon this earth in all of history. They have emerged from the worst Holocaust in history. They've been through every kind of natural disaster, and they've lived through a time of evil that has been unparalleled in Earth's history. They've been marked by God so that they cannot die, nor can any disaster or plague kill them. I suspect that there would probably be times that they may think that I would be better off if I could just go ahead and die. But because they too will be persecuted, they will be ridiculed. The suffering and reproach and the persecution that they go through, they are not going to be exempt from that. Just because they don't die, they are going to suffer as well. And just because they have their mark doesn't mean that they won't suffer, but they will make it through to the other side. And they're going to be battle worn. And they're going to be weary. But y'all, they're going to be triumphant. They're going to make it.
Amen.
They're going to make it. So these witnesses, they've come out with a new song that no one else will ever be able to sing. Okay, now I want y'all to come back with me to the real world for just a minute. Y'all are going to have an identity crisis when this is over, because I'm going to be sending you back and forth in time. But y'all, we know people. We know people who have been through things that we cannot even conceive of going through. People who are being, even now in today's world, being tortured and killed and beheaded because of their faith in Christ, and who refuse to renounce Him. We know people in our own little world who, I know a woman who lost both of her sons, and some of you all know her. She lost both of her sons in a car accident. Both of them died at the same time, and yet she's come out with a song of God's faithfulness. I can't sing that song. I'll never be able to sing that. I hope I'll never be able to sing that song. There are others who have experienced things like rape, incest, people who have been through bad marriages, divorce, unfaithfulness by their spouse, terrible financial losses, the loss of children, loneliness, physical infirmities that just go on, depression, and any number of things. Y'all listen to me. Those people will have a song. They're going to be a choir of people who have been raped, and they're going to, and they came out with a song that the rest of us cannot sing. There's going to be people, who have been through all of these things, and there's going to be a choir of people. Those people can sing a song that no one else can learn, because this is a song of personal experience about the faithfulness of God. I'll never forget Beth Moore telling the story of a woman that she had just heard of. Someone had requested prayer for, that had a little, and I can't remember all the details really, but had like a 4-year-old child or something, and then a younger, maybe 2-year-old child, and they had both died like within a week of each other, and they didn't know why. They just died. They did not know why the children had died. And so Beth heard about this, and she said, oh, I was on my face crying for that woman. I was bringing her name before the Lord, and the names of those precious little children, and I knew their names. I knew that woman's name, and I prayed and agonized over her. And so she said then sometime later she heard that this woman had gotten pregnant again. And then 6 months later, that child died. Oh my gosh. And so then later on, they did find out that her children were born with some kind of immune deficiency, so that any kind of germ they could not survive. But her heart broke to a million pieces for this lady, and oh, how she prayed for her. Well, then many years later, if you know Beth Moore's story, she took a child in, a little boy that was, I think, her nephew, and he was like her own. They adopted him, and she loved him like she was his mother. And about a couple of years into this, after she had given her life to him, her heart to him as his mother, the birth mother wanted him back, and she had to give him up. And she was so brokenhearted over that. And so she got a letter from someone, and as she began to read that letter, she recognized this story. And this woman was telling her, she said, I want to tell you, I've lost 3 children. And she said, I've come through it with a song of God's faithfulness. And I know how much you must be hurting right now. But I want to tell you, you will come through it, and you will have a song. And Beth said, I could not get to the phone fast enough to find that lady, to look her up and actually call and talk to her and tell her, oh, honey, don't even compare what I've been through to what you've been through. But you know what? Beth said, I can't sing the song that that lady sang, but I will be able to sing another song. And I myself personally, I will be in a choir with Beth Moore because I've been there and I've done what she's done. To take a child into my home thinking that that child would be mine forever. And it did not turn out that way. And I will be able to sing a song of personal experience, and so will you. You spot it. You name it. You know. You know what things you've been through. But someday we're all going to have a song to sing, and we're going to sing it in harmony with all the other people that they know that song. They know that song. I don't know what all we're going to be doing in heaven, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I could sit there for the first million years listening to your songs. I want to hear every single last one of the songs of how God was faithful through every single circumstance that you ever went through. And ladies, you won't be alone.
Yes.
You'll be singing. You'll be singing a song. You'll be singing. We do have a choice, though. We can come through those times, and we can make up our mind. We're going to say, God, you don't even care, and we can push him aside, or we can come through that with a song of his faithfulness, because he will be faithful. Okay. All right, so then in verses, I'm going to let you go back now in time, and now once again, you're back, and you're living through this time of tribulation. All right, so in verses 4 and 5, he tells us a little bit about these 144,000 and the characteristics that they will have. And so I want us real quickly to go through the characteristics that they have. And I want you to know that if you survive this time of tribulation, these are the characteristics that you are going to need to have as well. You will take on, whether you are one of the 144,000 or not, you will take on these characteristics, and you will survive this time, or you will come through. You may be killed, but you will come through on the other side to stand with Christ on Mount Zion, and it will turn out well for you. So in verses 4 and 5, he talks about that they are sexually pure. All right? These witnesses had a realm of experience that no one else could sing. They were sexually and spiritually pure, simply and purely devoted to only one. Does somebody have, did I give somebody 2 Corinthians 11, 2 and 3? I don't think I gave that out. But we've talked about that verse before, and that is where Paul is telling those people, I am so jealous for you with a godly jealousy, because I want to present you to Christ as a pure virgin. I don't want your eyes looking in other places. I want to present you to Christ as a pure virgin. And he said, I'm so afraid that you will be led astray from the simplicity and purity of devotion to just Christ. And that is how these 144, this is a characteristic of the 144,000 and of those who will come out on the other side, and it will be good for you. That you are completely and purely devoted to one. It says that they are not only, they're spiritually pure, but they are also, these people are sexually pure. Now, I want you to think about what has always, it seems, caused ministers to fall.
Adultery, sexual.
Is it not almost always some sexual sin? Because that is probably the greatest temptation known to man, isn't it? I can only guess at what it's going to be like during that time, and how difficult it's going to be to remain sexually pure, because evil is going to be running rampant. Satan himself has indwelt the leader of the entire world. And I suspect, and I probably knew too naive to even guess at how it's going to be, but I suspect that there's just going to be pornography straight in your face, on your TV, on the shelves, everywhere you
It's
go.
already on
It would
commercials.
not
There.
surprise me in the least if you didn't have pornography going on when you walked outside of your house, if there were not people in the streets.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm talking about blatant sexual temptation everywhere you go. And these people are going to somehow, by the grace of God, be sexually pure. And I think that is huge. All right. Then in verse 4b, he tells us that these are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. So I put on your listening guide there. They are not bipartisan. We're hearing a lot in an election season here about being partisan and bipartisan, and people talk about being bipartisan, and we don't really see that much. You're either one way or you're the other way nowadays, aren't you? But these people are, they are not bipartisan. They are very partisan. Let me tell you what the definition of partisan is. It's one who takes sides with another, an adherent supporter of a party or personal cause, a devoted or zealous supporter, one who supports his party through thick and thin, a prejudiced, fanatical adherent. Okay, so they aren't bipartisan at all. These are fanatical adherents to one Christ, and they are not bipartisan in the least. John Phillips, in John MacArthur's book here, let me read you what he says about these people, because I just love this. It said, they allow no rivals, no refusals, and no restraint to mar their dedication to him. Does he need someone to stand on the steps of the Vatican and cry out against the marriage of Christendom to the beast? There are 144,000 ready to go. Does the Lord need someone to beard the beast at some high function of state and roundly denounce him, his policy, his statecraft, his religion, his economic boycott, his mark, his ministers, his alliance with Satan? There are 144,000 eager to go. Does the Lamb need evangelists to proclaim to untold millions the gospel of the coming kingdom of God, to climb to the highest Himalayas, to cross the desert sands, to blaze evangelistic trails through steaming jungles, or to mush huskies across the wide Arctic wastes? There are 144,000 ready to go. And though the beast Gestapo sick dog their footsteps and wreak upon their converts the direst vengeance, yet on they go, undaunted and undeterred. That was the very spirit of their consecration as they followed the Lamb whithersoever he led them on the earth, and their reward will be in kind. It is such loyal devoters of Jesus, followers that Jesus seeks. In Matthew 16:24, he said, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Okay, come back to the real world. Are we fanatical adherents? And if you are living during that time of tribulation and you are watching this video, are you a fanatical adherent? These are the ones who are going to make it safely to the other side. This is the kind of dedication that he asks for. They follow him wherever he goes. The kind of people that are so fanatical that they are not interested in playing games with the other side anymore. Why do we follow someone wherever they go? Because we love them and because we trust them. Y'all, I've been walking Jesus for 52 years now. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I am a fanatical adherent to him. I am sold out the whole route. There you go. And you know why I am? Because he has not always led me most of the time, he has not led me through easy paths. But he has been right there beside me every step of the way. And I trust him with all my heart. And I will follow him wherever I have to go. And that's the kind of people that are going to make it safe to the other side. Okay, so they are not bipartisan, rather they are radical adherents to one cause. Okay, then in verse 4c, he tells them, they have been purchased among men as the first fruits to God and to the Lamb. So these are the ones who have been chosen to be the very first ones in the tribulation who will bring many others to Jesus Christ. In 1 Corinthians 16:15, he talks about that in the city of Achaia, that at the house of Stephanos, and wouldn't you have loved to have been a part of the house of Stephanos, because they were the first fruits in that city, and they dedicated themselves to the service of God. These 144,000 are going to be the very first fruits. They're going to be chosen to be the very first fruits of those in the tribulation period who will be saved and come through safely. All right, then in verse 5, it tells us that no lie was found in their mouth. They were blameless. All right, so they are honest. Somebody have Zephaniah 3:11 through 13?
I do. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. For then will I take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid.
All right, there you go. You're having it prophesied, this very thing that's happening. I will leave in the house of Israel people, there will be no lies on their tongue, and people will lie down and they will not be afraid anymore. And here they are, these people. There's no deceit found on their tongue. All right, these are the ones who are honest. That's going to be incredible as well, because the father of lies will be ruling the world at that time. And it's hard enough in our day to find someone who's honest. I mean, people will deceive you if they think people don't think twice about telling you something if there's some advantage in it for them.
Yep.
It's hard to find an honest man anymore. In that day, these people are going to stick out like a sore thumb because they tell nothing but the truth. Okay. Now, I expect, and like I told y'all before, I expect that this 144,000 are going to be converted to Jesus Christ because of the written word, because of the written word. They are going to, during that time of tribulation, all these people will be missing. They will have Bibles, and they will find those Bibles. They will find your books on Revelation that you studied. They're going to find our notes. They'll be listening to videos. And oh, folks, how important is it if these people are going to teach and believe and know the truth? let me ask you ladies, how important is it that I stand up here and tell you the truth? That the people who listen to me on that video hear the truth. I want you to know I'm committed to it. And I want us to be committed to it. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, y'all study to show yourselves approved unto God. Study to show yourselves approved unto God. A workman that does not need to be ashamed. You handle accurately the word of truth. Y'all pray for me that I do that. And I pray for you that whatever you leave behind in your house, that it will be truth, so that those people who are living during that time may find it, and they may find the truth. Okay, so these people are committed to knowing the truth. Okay, I find it amazing that in the time of Satan's reign, that all of those things will be true of them. All right, so then moving on quickly, who else is going to be saved? In verses 6 and 7, he has sent an angel, y'all, and he's flying around in mid-heaven, and he is telling them, worship who? Worship your what? Your creator. And who have we already established is the creator of all things? Jesus.
Yes.
You've got two choices right now. You worship the beast, you take his mark, or you worship your creator, and that is Jesus Christ. Have you ever wondered why he doesn't just send an angel right now and just, tell the world right now? Somebody, do you have Luke 22? I think maybe I didn't give that one out either. I'm going to read that one to you. In Luke 22, 67 and 68, this is where they're questioning Christ. And and they tell him, if you are the Christ, tell us. But he said to them, if I tell you, you won't believe.
Right.
And if I ask you a question, you will not answer. What question? What question could he possibly have asked them? The question that I think he's referring to here is, did I fulfill all the prophecies? The lamb that we talked about earlier in our discussion, is it a male lamb? Is it one that was precious to his father? Is it, all of these things that I've shown you over and over about how I will stand on, the Lord will stand on Mount Zion. Did I fulfill? Was I born in Bethlehem like it said in Malachi that I would be? Did I fulfill everything? You wouldn't answer me because you don't want to believe. You don't want to believe. And when people don't want to believe, when they have chosen to when they have made up their mind, I prefer darkness over light. That it wouldn't matter if an angel flew around in heaven, they still would not. But this, y'all, this is God's, during the time of tribulation, this is God's last one-ditch effort, sending that angel flying around in midair, proclaiming the gospel to them, and telling them, don't worship the Antichrist. Don't worship him. Worship your creator. All right, then the second angel in verse 8, and he starts flying around, and he is telling them, Babylon has fallen. And he's announcing that to them. Now, we're going to study Babylon in detail, and you're going to understand that better in chapters 17 and 18. But that is basically, he's telling them that the fall of the entire religious and economic system of the Antichrist is going to fall. Amen? Amen? All right. So, this also represents a mentality that will be that is prevalent in Babylon. We're going to learn about that later on. But those of you who have studied Daniel, do you remember, and I'm going to help you out just a little bit here, the Babylonian mentality is, I am, and there is, you remember? No one besides me. Yes. So that is the Babylonian mentality. People are so wrapped up in themselves. What is the opposite of I am and there is no one besides me. God is, and there is nothing else that matters but Him. That's the opposite. Okay, so Babylon, that ideology has fallen, and these are the ones who are going to make it through safely. Those who have rejected the Babylonian mentality, I am and there is no one besides me. And they have given that up, for God is. Jesus Christ is, and there is no one besides Him. All right, then in verses 9 through 11, He has an angel flying through midair, and He is telling them in no uncertain terms, do not take the mark. Do not take the mark. And He's telling them exactly why not to take that mark. And He tells them that if you take that mark, that you will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which will be poured out in full measure. There will be no diluting that wrath. And your torment will go up forever and ever. All right, so He has told them, in other words, looking back, He's telling them, if you don't worship your Creator, and if you don't get over yourself, and if you choose to take that mark, and if you are not an absolute adherent to one God, Jesus Christ, then this thing is not going to turn out well for you. You will not make it safely to the other side. So who is going to make it safely? And then in verse 12 it tells us those who have faith in Jesus. They will make it safely to the other side. My BFI version of that is, even though this is going to be the hardest thing that you have ever done, you will be on the winning side in the end.
What was that number 4, Bonnie? Those who do not.
Worship the beast or take his mark. Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, so I want to tell anyone who may be listening to me by video right now, persevere through whatever you have to persevere through. Worship your Creator. Do not take that mark. Trust in Jesus Christ, and you will make it to the other side, to live in the eternal righteous kingdom. All right, then in verse 13, he hears a voice from heaven, and this voice tells him, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds will follow them. J. Vernon McGee said, our works, good or bad, will be like tin cans tied to a dog tail. We cannot get away from them. It's not going to be easy. Absolutely not. God's people during this time are going to be hunted down. They're going to be living in a godless world. They're going to have to struggle with their own flesh and with the evil one, like we in our day have no clue about. But he's telling them here, even if you die, you're blessed, because you're going to be released from all that.
Right.
You're going to. That's how you can persevere. That's how you can do it. Is that you know that even if I die, it's going to turn out well for me. In the end, the 144,000 will not die, but there will be many, and you may be one of those that must give your life, but it will turn out well for you. All right, then, so number 6 there is that those who are willing to lay down their lives for the truth now, knowing that rewards equal to your sacrifice will follow you. So, you will be safe if you are one of the 144,000 Jews, if you worship your Creator, Jesus Christ, if you reject the me mentality, if you do not take the mark 666, because when you take that mark, it's over. It's over. No more chances. If you place your faith in Jesus, and if you're willing to even lay down your life for him. All right. Then in verses 14 through 20, we have Christ himself, and he's coming down on a cloud, and the angels with him are telling him to put in the sickle, that the vines are ready, they are ripe, the grapes are ripe. And it's ripe because everyone now has heard. Everyone on the face of the earth has heard, and they've made their choice. So then in verses 17 through 20, he describes the Battle of Armageddon, when 200 million people will descend upon the nation of Israel in the valley of Megiddo to destroy Israel, and Christ will come, and his angels will gather them there into that wine vat. Now, the wine vat, and we saw these when we went to Israel, they are vats that are cut out of stone, and they would pour, all these grapes into that vat, and it had a thing underneath it where the juice from those grapes would flow down into a vat underneath there, and with their bare feet they would trample those grapes, and the juice from those grapes would go down into that smaller vat. And so that's what is these people who are left on the earth who have refused to believe in Jesus Christ will be like those grapes who will be trampled underfoot. Does somebody have Joel 3:13 through 17?
I do.
Okay, can you read that, please?
Excuse me. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, tread, for the winepress is full. The vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness. The Lord roars from Zion and utters his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth tremble. That the Lord is a refuge for his people, and a stronghold to the sons of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. So Jerusalem will be holy, and strangers will pass through it no more.
Wow. He's been telling us, y'all, in the scriptures, in the Word of God, he's been telling us what's going to happen. For millenniums, he's been telling us this, that someday that the earth, it will be purged of all unrighteousness, and y'all, only those who are righteous because their sins have been done away with by the blood of the Lamb will be the ones who will survive to live in this righteous kingdom. Okay. So those who trample underfoot the Son of God and count his blood as a worthless thing will be trodden underfoot in the winepress of his wrath. I want you to hear me and hear me with your heart. The choice must be made now. The breath of God's mercy has expired. The time for separating the winners from the losers is right now. The choice is clear. It's come down to two choices. Will you worship the Antichrist, or will you worship the Christ? If you worship the beast, you will be damned by God. Worship God and be condemned by the beast, but you will end up in an eternal righteous kingdom. I would rather be on the side that seems to be losing today, but will finally win, than to be on the side that seems to be winning today, but is going to lose.